the trivial point for this movie is talking about immigration and the fact that Superman is an alien. In the United States, they literally call illegal immigrants aliens. So that comparison was very much on the nose for me. What did you think about the depiction of Superman as an alien, an illegal immigrant, and how that plays out in the movie?
All Superman movies are always dealing with immigration. The question is, how far do they lean into it or lean away from it? But all of them
Mm,
always have. It is the tension that exists for this character, who is this all American, tall white man that grew up in a farm in Kansas, but he is not only not actually originally born in the US, but he's not even born on the planet. He's about as alien as you can come. I hate the term alien. I hate the term illegal
mm-hmm,
immigrant. I don't believe any
mm-hmm,
human beings are illegal when we're born on this planet. So I
mm-hmm,
just generally tend to shudder at that kind of language. And I enjoy art that criticizes how we other people in that way. I have a complicated relationship with the politics of this movie when it comes to domestic politics. International
mm-hmm.
politics and geopolitics, perfectly interesting. I think it's well done. The domestic politics, I think this movie is trying to eat its cake and have it too. Because we're existing currently in this second Trump presidency era, this post quote unquote post woke era, this reactionary era, this, oh, the world is so split, oh, there's so much ideological differences starting to be established between the genders, that a lot of mass media is desperately trying to sell as, sometimes to me, kumbaya a message as possible. The way this movie tries to do it feels a bit too on the nose to me. There's a literal scene where a character says, well, both conservatives and liberals can agree. We all hate Lex Luthor. And I was like, if only it was that simple. Elon Musk has been rampaging up and down this planet, doing all sorts of outrageous things, saying all sorts of hateful things, gutting people's jobs in the US, discriminating against people, promoting basically the acceleration of ourselves into this AI tech dystopia. And he's still mostly embraced by the right. So I don't enjoy this whole fantasy of a world where we all link together and we can all agree that we don't like it where these evil billionaires get evil. That hasn't happened in the real world. Let's not pretend that that's happened. A lot of people, regardless of class, seem to enjoy choosing to align themselves with fascistic billionaires. So I tend to just flinch at some of that kind of narrative because I feel like it's so idealistic to the point of erasing the problem.
One of the reasons why I really enjoyed this movie is because even beyond immigration, I think it's the nation state or the concept of the nation state itself that was on trial in this movie. But because it's an American movie, basically, they had to do it in a light touch way. The whole point of having a nation state or the Western concept of it is so that you can keep people out. That's literally what a nation is about. It's about defining that this land, our resources, our people are for us only, and we will select who we want to have access to that or not. And so there's an automatic dehumanization that happens when you have a nation state. Now, what confused me is the fact that they made this point, like I said, in a light touch way, but it almost felt like they were too scared to fully commit to that message because, of course, America's famous for its nationalism. So they can't make that comment without isolating their audience, and I do understand that. But at the same time, I think it was good to see somebody who presents as a white man, at least, be so brutalized by what is basically the US nation state and have that depicted in a way where hopefully people can see that this is wrong. Because unfortunately, when it's a person of color on screen, people sometimes don't have the same empathy. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So I hope that by seeing this depicted with somebody who's white, somebody who's very attractive, someone who represents what a man is supposed to be in America, that this will encourage empathy for within people, so that next time when you see a person of color, when you see ICE rounding up immigrants, when you see people being brutalized and called aliens, children including, being called aliens and brutalized by the system, that you can remember this thing that you find disgusting in this movie and have empathy for them as well. I do think it was interesting that somebody says to Superman at one point that you don't have any rights, you're an alien, right?
Yes.
this is very much, again, true to real life. I also think it was interesting how there were some elements where I thought, are they making comments about how immigrants and illegal immigrants, because sometimes internalize the nationalistic propaganda and use it against other people. So, for example, when Superman's family's message is exposed, then the Justice Gang, they kind of turn on him at one point, and it's like, oh, but we come from virtuous lands. We were sent here to save human beings. You're a dirty kryptonite. You came here to come and subjugate human beings. And I thought that was
Mm.
so, so interesting. Again, I'm not sure that James Gunn actually wants to go fully into that, but I do think to myself, if one of the big themes in this movie is about immigration and how propaganda informs people's opinions about immigration, then this is a great way to demonstrate how it can even work on the immigrants themselves.
And also note that those people, those meta-humans, they also are employees of Luthercore, or they're working with the government. There's also something about when they are operating as agents of corporations, then that rhetoric of I am the good immigrant, I am the model immigrant gets dialed up even more.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Them literally saying to Clark that you are an alien, you have no rights.
Mm-hmm.
As a person who has been doing battles with the immigration system for the last 12 years of my life, it's something that I constantly have to be reminding myself that do not let these people dehumanize you, do not let these people dehumanize you, do not let these people dehumanize you. So that was effective on me.
I think another thing that I found interesting with the depiction of immigration through, again, someone who presents as a white man, is the fact that Superman is very naively trusting of the United States justice system. And I
Mhm.
think about my family who live in the United States as Caribbean immigrants, and I can guarantee you they're not nearly as trusting, right? Because they're black and they know there's a high chance you'll be brutalized by the system.
This movie, at the end, when they show Lex Luthor getting arrested because it's revealed that he was plotting with
Mm-hmm.
Bavaria this whole time, and I was like, well, that's all nice and good, but that's not what would happen in the real world.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the reason why I'm saying that I'm not sure this movie wants to fully, fully go there. Because at the end of the day, the United States system does is still portrayed as a savior, right? They go and save the people, quote unquote, who are in the prison. They arrest Lex Luthor, as you say. So again, it's like if you wanted to actually go there with this commentary, you would have to criticize the American military system. But this movie
Fully.
stops, yeah, fully. This movie stops short of doing that, and that's why I know they were trying to, not muddy the waters a bit too much.
I think at the end of the day, this is a Superman movie. It's a
Yeah.
movie for kids, one, and it's also just a Superman popcorn movie. It's not the Snyder Man of Steel style movies. Even those ones didn't fully go there in critiquing military industrial complex properly.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so far as they seem to be willing to go, and they'd already pushed it pretty far with the geopolitics
Mm-hmm.
outside. So that's why I keep saying that. I think for this movie, they kept the domestic politics pretty happy moderate
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that they could lean quite far with the international geopolitics.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny to see them pretending that we live in a world where there will be proper checks and balances and institution checking billionaires and corporations just acting with impunity when it comes to people's lives, as if
Mm-hmm.
we're not literally witnessing what is happening in
In
real
real
time
life.
right
Mm-hmm.
now in not just the US but in Europe, other Western countries, but
Mm-hmm.
especially right now, specifically in the US, as if we did not see all of the people who were lined up in the White House on inauguration day,
Mm-hmm.
representing all the biggest companies in the world. After 4 years ago, there had been an insurrection in the US Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I know that this whole movie is trying to do radical
Mm-hmm.
optimism, things can be better, let's dream of an ideal world. But I am a person who has to navigate this world as a
Mm-hmm.
Black immigrant
Exactly.
woman. I don't fully have the luxury of being able to completely escape to the fantasy, but I can
Mm-hmm.
see how that would be very inviting to be able to do. I saw a person describe this movie. They were being more critical of it than I was, as a Sunday morning kids cartoon introducing them to world politics and the importance of being kind. And that is honestly the most apt
Yeah.
summary of this film I've seen. They were saying it in a negative way. I don't think that's inherently a negative thing.
I think in this world, that's not negative at all. It's very much needed. We need more content like this. And funnily enough, I was thinking about Wicked when I watched this because the two movies have a lot in common, especially when it comes to the world of propaganda. One question I did have about this though is I found myself asking, how radical is Superman really? Because as I mentioned, Superman, he's naively trusting of the establishment, and then he's introduced to the fact that actually no, you can't trust this establishment. You don't have any rights. They've told you that explicitly, and the reason why you don't have any rights is because you're an alien, quote unquote. You're an illegal immigrant, right? And I think now that Superman has been brutalized, he's been in prison. They almost killed him, and he's come out. The movie doesn't get into it, but I wondered to myself, would he still be, given that we know that he's a optimist, a radical optimist even, would he still be trusting of this system, or would he be trying to demolish the state?
And to me, this is where the failures of the Lois Lane Clark Kent relationship come in, because
Mm,
that would have been a more tightly written final act, would have answered that exact question you just asked by looping back in with Clark and Lois from that earlier conversation they had early in the movie. A movie that was trying to properly establish that connection those two have, not just romantically, not just intimately, but also personally, politically,
mm,
socially, thoughtfully, mentally, would have had her do some kind of temperature check with him that now
mm,
that this has happened, considering what we just thought about, what are you really thinking? What are you really feeling? And that could go either
mm,
way. He could continue to be that radical optimist, or he could be a bit more jaded. I don't mind, but I would have enjoyed to get the delivery of how this film's final note is on this subject through the mechanism of their relationship. This is part of my criticism of this movie. Certain things are delivered with exposition instead of
yeah.
the characters talking to each other in a way that normal people talk.
Hmm.
A lot of that Lex Luthor stuff is just spelling it out. And I'm like, no, no. I
Yeah.
don't need you to be Heath Ledger's, Christopher Nolan's Joker, speaking with 3 layers of metaphor and whatever. I don't need that. But you can't be doing all of this and then I'll take you too seriously.